Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the Fin Side with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, all of our social media outlets, as well as the Fansided Network and FinFanatic.com. Fellow Paul and I are follow me at Brian Cat NFL and Paul at Fanatic_pick on Twitter. So we're 1 week and a little bit more here removed from the NFL draft, Paul. We're going to put some finishing touches on the Dolphins 2021 draft. You know, now that we've have a clear mind a week later, we're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, mostly positive. It's been overwhelmingly positive feedback here by most draft pundits, Paul, across the NFL.
It really has, and it's absolutely crazy to me. Travis Wingfield tweeted out a breakdown that Daniel Jeremiah did that had the Dolphins second or third in total overall value based on his top 150 big board. And just for fun, I actually took that list and because it had the number of picks as well on it, and I broke it down as value per pick based on Jeremiah's big board. And Miami was clear and away the number one team as far as the value that they got in the draft based on his big board, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, when you look at the players they took, I mean, Jalen Waddle was number 5 on his big board. Jaelan Phillips was 21, Javon Holland 49, Liam Eichenberg 47, and Hunter Long 90. So, but you look at ESPN. I mean, for people that like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, I like them more than most. Mel Kiper had Hunter Long as his 42nd player in the draft. So you take a look at his big board. As far as he's concerned, the Dolphins got 5 of the top 51 players, with Waddle at 5, Jaelan Phillips at 17, Holland at 56, Holland at 50, Eichenberg at 51, and Hunter Long at 42. So, yeah, it has been definitely revered across ESPN, NFL.com, a lot of the different outlets, mostly because the Dolphins, had top picks and had so many picks here in the first 2 rounds. But Paul, before we take a deeper dive into the Dolphins draft class here,
and Kat, I want to jump in on that real quick too. There was one other comment that I really liked. I guess Maurice Jones-Drew used to coach Holland when he was a kid, and he came out on NFL Network and said that he feels that Holland is actually the best defensive player in this draft, bar none, which is a big claim, even if you used to coach the kid. So
MJD did a mock draft about 2 months ago and had Javon Holland going 10th overall to Dallas. Like, that's pretty, but he definitely thinks highly of him. MJD with his predictions tends to go off the rails a little bit, but yeah, he thinks very highly of him. A lot of people out there think very highly of Javon Holland. And I think that if he had played this past year and had as many interceptions as he did in 2018 and 2019, we definitely would have been talking about a first-round pick when it comes to him. So, yeah, but he's going to have big shoes to fill now, because it looks like he's going to be taking over at free safety for Bobby McCain, who was cut this past week, something I don't think we were expecting. The Dolphins cut Bobby McCain, save $5.66 million against the cap, and then also turn around and sign Jason McCourty to a 1-year deal. So your thoughts, Paul?
Well, I had tweeted out shortly after the draft that I expected the Dolphins to make a flurry of moves starting this week and over the next few weeks based on the roster they have, the fact that they do have some tradable players that I don't think are going to make the roster. But when I said that, I expected Bobby to be here for at least another year. I mean, it's very rare that you start with the captain of your defense. But it's, their secondary is overloaded still, given the fact that they, have Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones. Now they've signed Jason McCourty. Like, I mean, you start running down this list. Eric Rowe, like, they have a packed secondary, and I think Fedulum may be the next to go, even though I barely count him as a member of the secondary.
Right. Yeah. I didn't expect McCain. I expected him to be here for another year too. But I looked at McCain and Eric Rowe with the money that they're making, and then thinking, are Brandon Jones and Javon Holland really going to be third and fourth safeties, given that given the investment the Dolphins put into him? I mean, Brandon Jones had a really good rookie year, was 81st overall as a pick last year. Javon Holland was 36th this year in the second round. Those are high investments for pure safeties. So it doesn't shock me, but I really wish they hadn't cut McCain, because the way I look at it, he is a good free safety and got moved there last year out of necessity. I didn't agree with it, but he had a really good year. He's a good free safety and an even better nickel back. I would pay $5.6 million for that. That's what it comes down to for me.
I thought he was going to end up going back to the nickel position. In all honesty, if either Brandon or Javon Holland was ready to start right away. But the Jason McCourty signing did make it no longer make sense. And then the other thing, too, and this is something Antoine Staley had mentioned the other day, is they said they were going to release McCain, but I don't believe they've officially done so yet, which means they're hoping somebody comes in with an offer of anything for him so that they can trade him instead of actually releasing him. Because you remember, like, when they released KVN, they announced it on a Wednesday, but they didn't actually release him until, like, the following Monday.
Right. And we'll see if anything happens there. Typically it doesn't. If somebody comes in with a 7th round pick, then or an offer of a 6th or 7th round pick, I think the Dolphins absolutely take it. I mean, I think we saw that a couple months ago with Isaiah Ford, where Dolphins announced they were going to release him, and then the Patriots come in with an offer of, and now the Dolphins are going to have the Patriots 6th round pick next year as a result of that Isaiah Ford trade. So yeah, we'll see about that. The Dolphins signed Jason McCourty, and my first reaction was, really, 34 years old, cornerback / safety. But I don't mind it if we judge it independent from the Bobby McCain deal, because this is a 1-year contract. We don't have the official terms on that right now, but more than likely this is going to be a 1-year. Hey, show up to training camp. We'll give you a signing bonus of, $250,000. And if for nothing else, he gets into camp, works with these younger defensive backs like Noah Igbinoghene and Brandon Jones and Javon Holland, shows them, really how to work. And maybe it would be a good sign, actually, if he did not make the roster. It would have shown that a lot of these younger players, these younger defensive backs, stepped up.
Absolutely. I don't love or hate the McCourty signing. It makes some sense. And really, like you said, he's a leader that can come in and show these young guys, a little bit of how and what Flores wants from a defense.
And if anything gets sticky with the Xavier Howard contract there, as of right now, we don't expect it, but he did hire a new agent. Typically when you do that and you hire David Cantor, you're doing it because you want another contract. Maybe it gives him a little bit of flexibility at defensive back from there. So yeah, it's fine to go with Jason McCourty. We'll see how that pans out. So we're now, Paul, a week away from the NFL draft, or a week removed from the NFL draft, I should say. And, there were, in the second round, I think we were a little bit frustrated at the time. I've come around a little bit on that. They take Javon Holland at 36, then they trade up from 50 to 42, give up a 3rd rounder next year to draft offensive tackle Liam Eichenberg. So, 1 week removed from the draft, what are a few things that you're thinking now you've had a week to sleep on it?
I actually love this draft. We're a lot stronger team, and it's the offensive line is definitely improved, both as far as from left to right, and depth. My worry is still at center. You're banking a lot right now on either somebody who hasn't managed to crack the starting lineup truly, and Michael Dieter, or a guy that last we knew forgot how to snap the football in Matt Skura, who Skura, before forgetting how to snap the football, was an All-Pro center, and it's
Was he?
he was pretty close. I mean, he was in line for a very big payday at center.
He was, the arrow was pointing up for him before
Yeah.
last year. I don't think he ever made a Pro Bowl or was an All Pro, but
No, but I mean, he's All-Pro quality center. I mean, you look at what he did the year before, and before his injury, and he was going to be getting a Corey Linsley type contract. I mean, it just, but regardless, it's, that's the one hole I still see on this team potentially. I'm curious to see if they start teaching Jesse Davis to snap the football again like they started to last offseason. I like this line a lot better with Jesse Davis snapping the football at this point than Matt Skura, because I don't trust Skura.
yeah.
But it's outside of that, the secondary, ridiculously deep. The linebacking core is improved. The defensive line is insane. Pass rush, I'm good. As long as Jaelan Phillips can keep from getting another concussion, we're in good shape. The receiver room is so ridiculous. Like, it's almost a meme in and of itself with, I think 7 tight end / fullbacks and 14, 15 wide receivers right now. And there's some really quality dudes in that room. So it's running back. I like Dokes, and I think he's the perfect complement to Gaskin.
Yeah, I look a week later here, and I agree with the draft pundits here that the Dolphins had one of the best drafts, and a lot of that had to do with the picks that they had coming in. But I like, overall, I like who they took. When you take a look kind of at the positives, the Dolphins have shown here that at running back and at center, they have no respect for the position. And that's fine. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing, because you look, if you want to take two of the most lowest thought of positions in the NFL, it's running back and it's center. And if you want to see the proof of that, see what they get paid out there in free agency. Other than Corey Linsley, nobody got really paid anything. David Andrews, got 5 years, $20 million as the number 2 center. The Dolphins signed Matt Skura 1 year, $1.5 million or whatever it was. At running back, I mean, besides Aaron Jones, nobody got paid. So I wish Javonte Williams still had been the pick at 36. I wish he had fallen a spot further, but I get it. And what I like about what the Dolphins have done really the last 2 years, they've drafted quarterback, left tackle, cornerback, defensive end, and wide receiver. To me, those are the top 5 impact positions in the NFL, and those are the 5 most thought of and highest paid out there in the free agent market too. So I think that makes a lot of sense there. So they draft high impact players at high impact positions. That's what they did with Waddle, the most explosive player in the draft at the wide receiver spot, and just in terms of speed. And as far as I'm concerned, far and away defensive end 1 in Jaelan Phillips, who, by the way, the word was the Colts were going to take at 21 had he fallen over Kwity Paye, and also the Broncos were trying to trade back up into the first round to get Jaelan Phillips, and they were going to trade up a long way to get him. So I love the Phillips pick. I think that's a phenomenal risk versus reward scenario, and I think the rest of the NFL agreed.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, Javon Holland, and just the absolute multitude of uses you can have for him in the secondary, it is a great selection to be that Bobby McCain replacement potentially. And in addition to that, we both shook our heads when they moved up to get Liam Eichenberg, but I think he had gone 1,231 snaps with, like, literally single digits as far as pressures are concerned, and I believe there wasn't a sack in that last 1,231 snaps, which is insane. And he plays with attitude, and he went up against the best of the draft for the last 3 years at Notre Dame as far as pass rushers go, and shut them down. Which, it's at the end of the day, Like, I know we talked a lot about arm measurements for players, and I know Eichenberg has short arms for the position, but there are times where the football ability outweighs the measurables, and Eichenberg is, if you take the shorter arms out of the equation, he has it in spades. And he's not the only offensive tackle with short arms this year. I mean, Penei Sewell, Elijah Vera Tucker, some of these guys that went in the first round are definitely short arm guys. And
where I if I can jump in there too, what I'd say though too is, Sewell had shorter arms than we thought. They're still over, they were 33 and a fourth. Eichenberg was 32 and a half. And some people may say, well, who cares? But then somebody has to explain to me, why does every offensive tackle that's good in the NFL have 33-inch arms or more? Why have players who have come into the NFL like Forrest Lamp, who has had injury problems, but also has short arms and moved inside to guard? Why is that the case? But I agree with you on Eichenberg's production. Looking at a quote here from C.K. Parrott, too, he went up against Azeez Ojulari and Malik Herring from Georgia, Josh Uche and Kwity Paye from Michigan, Chris Rumpf, and their other fifth-round pick there, I'm not going to pronounce his last name, from Duke, Janarius Robinson and Josh Kando from Florida State, Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones from Pittsburgh. So he was battle-tested over the last 2 years and didn't allow a sack. That's, I think, a great thing. And I think the backup thing with Eichenberg, too, is that say that he doesn't work out at the right tackle spot. I have very little doubt that this guy's going to be able to move inside and be a good guard. He reminds me a lot of Justin Pugh, who the Giants took in the first round of the 2013 draft, who did have short arms, did play some tackle, but eventually got kicked inside to guard.
Yeah. And so, Kat, real quick, I want to go to something from our chat, because I know we talked about Skura, and K-Dot asked, what Skura did for us to not trust him, and if he messed up that bad. What was it, 4 or 5 snaps he either sailed or skipped or what have you in such a ridiculously 1 or 2 game span, and went from being a guy that was going to get Lindsley money to a guy that basically was almost going to go out of the league potentially in a span of like 2 weeks. That's how bad it was. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Right. He had 2 really, really bad games at center this past year. And just to go back, to 2019, he was getting better and better and better as a pro. And he was, I don't know about Lindsley money, but not far off. I mean, he we were talking about, he was, supposed to, at the time, was one of the most highly thought of centers in the game. And then in 2020, at the end of 2019, tears his ACL. And then in the 2020 season, he doesn't have a good year and has 2 just absolute monstrosities of a game snapping the football to the point where he had to be taken out of the lineup and moved to guard. So he forgot how to snap the ball. So people can say, well, if we take away all of 2020, he's still a really good player, but he's 29, forgot to snap the ball last year, and looked terrible when he was on the field. I mean, my hope is that between he and Dieter, the position is not one that's going to harm drives for the Dolphins, and I'm not quite sure that it won't.
Yeah, it's center may be an overlooked position, but there is no position in the NFL that can really truly ruin your offense more right from the rip than the center position. It's the shortest path to the quarterback if you can't block. If you can't snap the ball, it doesn't. I mean, if you've got linemen that can hold people for 3 seconds and your quarterback's got to spend the first 2 looking for the ball, there's a very good chance he's going to get sacked. It can ruin your handoff timing if he's got to chase snaps or, really try his butt off to handle snaps. Now his timing with his receivers is all screwed up. And, your center calls a lot of the protections up there. And if he gets in his head and his timing is even slightly off, guess what? Let's look at an increase in offsides penalties and an increase in holding penalties because your quarterback's chasing the damn ball around.
On the other side, if Skura cleans up what was wrong last year, you've got a
Oh yeah.
bargain at 1 year, $1.5 million. So that's the other side of it, and that's it. But I go back to, why didn't you just re-sign Ted Karras, and where you've got a middle of the pack center, and you're not taking any risk, and you don't even have to worry about center in the draft, and we're not even having this conversation. So that's where I've got a couple of problems there. But looking back at the Dolphins draft, as far as just the positives, what I like is that, again, they swung for the fences with Waddle and Jaelan Phillips in the first 2 rounds, and I think both of those players can completely change the way the Dolphins play football on offense and on defense. Waddle is a natural separator, and one thing too that I think it was Greg Cosell that said that we maybe didn't touch on enough is Waddle is so fast before the ball is even in the air. And that changes so many things with how NFL secondaries are going to play the Dolphins wide receivers. So you have Fuller and Waddle who can separate. You've got Gesicki and Parker who are the contested catch guys. That's a great combo there. And you could spread the field, and I think that's the way the Dolphins have to do it. Defensively, one thing the Dolphins didn't have last year with Shaq Lawson is, they had somebody who could, really take the left tackle and push him back, but they didn't have somebody that could really get to the quarterback. Now they have the option to go blitz crazy like they did last year, or just to rush with their front 4, with Waddle and Ogbah off the edge.
They do, and on top of that as well, you mean with Phillips and Ogbah?
What did I say?
You said Waddle. And trust me, I think Waddle could get to the quarterback faster than anybody. But...
Yes, Phillips and Ogbah. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, it's but I mean, Phillips just has such a ridiculous motor. He was a steal at 18 if he can stay healthy. One thing I want to go back to as well, though, is one of the guys we skipped over there. Is I love the Hunter Long pick more and more and more. He's a smart player. He's a better receiving tight end than anybody this side of Mike Gesicki in this offense. And if you look back at last season, the number of catches that went to Shaheen, Smythe, and everybody else we trotted out at that second wide receiver position, or second tight end position, Miami used their second tight end a tremendous amount, and now they've got somebody that not only is going to be a far better receiver than anybody they trotted out there at that second tight end spot, going out into those patterns is almost the forgotten dude. He can have a chance to do well enough to take some of the pressure off Gesicki. And if those two are doing what they should in the middle of the field, and you've got Parker, Waddle, and Fuller out there taking the top off the defense and running crossers, etc., they're going to be open a lot more. And you add to that, and I love that Flo actually said this because it's something we've said on the show, if you've got tight ends occupying safeties and linebackers, etc., and you've got these speed guys that can take the top off of defense and are forcing folks to come after them, if you want to play the run, you're going to have Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Parker in one-on-one scenarios. If you want to play those tight ends, guess what? You can run the ball, and you've got those guys still in one-on-one scenarios. And if you want to really over-account for them, Hunter Long and Mike Gesicki are both devastating in the seam, so they're going to force defenses to pick their poison. And I love that. And Hunter Long's like a completionary piece for that.
I was irate when they took Hunter Long at 81. I just didn't get it because
like Aaron Rodgers when the Packers take a corner.
Yeah, this is better than that, and we'll get to that too, because we're going to talk about the other drafts we liked and disliked too. But I like it more than I did on draft day, I'd say. I still wouldn't have gone tight end at that spot, and the reason being is I think Durham Smythe and Adam Shaheen are more than capable pieces for what the Dolphins want to do. Now Gesicki and Smythe are free agents at the end of the year, but my thought is, okay, go sign a Levine Tololo, go sign an OJ Howard if that's the case. I don't think there needs to be a succession plan for your second tight end. If this is a talk about free agency here. Now, if going back to what you said there, Paul, Smythe and Shaheen played a lot of snaps last year. And if they were unsatisfied with what they got, more unsatisfied than we thought, then the pick makes a little bit more sense because Hunter Long, not a lot of holes in his game. I mean, he led all tight ends last year in catches in college football, 57 catches, I believe. And, he's 6'5", 250. He has great hands. He's a well-rounded kind of old school type of tight end. Now, he doesn't have a lot of experience blocking in line, but physically, I think he absolutely can do it. So I think they got a good football player here. But in all honesty, too, at the beginning of day 2, for all the mock drafters out there, at the beginning of day 2, if I had mocked that the Dolphins got Javon Holland, Liam Eichenberg, and Hunter Long and gave up a 3rd-round pick next year, you probably would have said, a little bit underwhelming, if we're being honest.
Yeah, but looking back on it after the fact, seeing how all the pieces fit together, I was probably higher on Hunter Long, mainly because I do view him as an upgrade at the second tight end spot. And you take Hunter Long and you put him on 24, 25 teams in the NFL, and he's your number 1 tight end. And that's what I think of this kid. I mean, is he going to be your number 1 tight end over Kelsey or Waller? No. And a handful of others, at least not yet. Yeah, he's your number 2 tight end, but you really have 2 number 1 tight ends. And you look at what the Patriots did when they drafted Gronk all those years ago now, and Hernandez, and before all the murder stuff. It's
all the murder stuff.
But I mean, you look at what they were able to do with those 2 on the field together.
And hold on, let me stop there before anyone look. That is, we're not joking. It's just the way that Paul said it. So I don't want to get any messages here of how dare you say no.
Go ahead and tweet at me. I don't care.
Just the way Paul said it. Go
at
ahead.
Fanatic Pick on Twitter. Go for it. But anyway.
But let's stop there. Yeah, they're after you get past Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Waller. There is it's hard to separate the 4th tight end from the 25th tight end in the NFL. I mean, Pitts will probably be just default be the 4th best tight end, if not the 1st. But yeah, he looks the part, and I don't see why he couldn't be another Hayden Hurst type of tight end, guy who can block in line, guy who can split out wide. Yeah, I get it. His
catch radius, though, that's the thing. That's another thing I love with him. He's got deceptive speed. He's not gonna go out and start running 100-meter dash and track, but he's got deceptive speed, and his catch radius is insane, which isn't something you say a lot for a tight end. And when you've got somebody who, even Ryan Fitzpatrick has come out and said the thing he loves about Tua is his elite accuracy. And then you've got a tight end with tremendous catch radius. And he's your second tight end, so he's not even drawing the lion's share of the coverage, and you've got the receivers on the outside. Hunter Long's going to be sneakily open because he runs some really good routes, and you watch his BC tape, and as the guy, he was still getting tremendously open. Now imagine when he's going up against your worst coverage linebacker, or your okay coverage safety. He finds the holes in the zone. So with that catch radius, with Tua's elite accuracy, he's going to have a blankie. At the very worst, we got Tua a blankie out there, which will be great for his development.
Oh, that's comforting.
It is a nice, cozy, comforting blankie that can run after that.
I think you've just provided a very romantic version of a. Okay,
there's going to be candles and biscuits and wine.
Hey! If nobody's covering him, he's really good. No, but actually, at Boston College, he was the focal point.
He's good at making sure nobody's covering him.
He was the focal point at Boston College. But overall, now when you look at it, is at tight end they've got Gesicki, Hunter Long, Smythe, Adam Shaheen. Who knows? They could trade off. I mean, I think another team would be smart to throw a 6th or 7th round pick at the Dolphins for Smythe right now. Same
Or
thing for
Shaheen.
or Shaheen. I agree. And then at wide receiver, I mean, you're going to have Parker, Waddle, Fuller, and then you still got the Lynn Bowden and Jakeem Grants and everything. So now Tua has the supporting cast at wide receiver and tight end to spread the field and do what he does best. And one thing that I hated on these shows and these podcasts this week is this quote: "No more excuses for Tua." Like, what? Like, do we have to remind people that a year ago today that people didn't even think he was? I mean, it was questionable about whether or not he was even going to get on the field in 2020. So
He was still learning how to walk again. I mean, it's like he was. I think he was barely off crutches. Like, give me a break. Like, come on.
yeah, I'm with you on that. And so yeah, we're gonna do a show here too about an upcoming show as well about the other draft classes that we did like here and didn't like. You're looking at some undrafted free agents, Paul, that the Dolphins signed, not as many as previous years. I remember we did a whole show on this. I think maybe 2 shows a couple of years ago in 2019. That's where Preston Williams came from and Shaq Calhoun and a lot of other players there too. So, they signed guard Robert Jones from Middle Tennessee State, fullback Carl Tucker from Alabama, defensive tackle Jerome Johnson from Indiana, and cornerback Jaelan Askew from forgetting the name. Was it Vanderbilt?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Thank you. I had the colors right, but yeah. So Robert Jones is somebody that I expected to get drafted here. I thought he played really well in the Shrine Bowl. He was the right tackle there for Middle Tennessee State. Good strength, good balance, not a lot of flexibility. It kind of sounds like a Dolphins guard, where they don't sign a lot of times or go after the big time athletes. They just want somebody who can block the person in front of them. That sounds like Robert Jones. I think he has a good shot to make the roster. I even think he has a better chance maybe than Larnell Coleman, the Dolphins 7th round pick.
He does, and Miami really made sure that they got him by doing an unprecedented thing that you only see teams do when they're begging somebody to sign with them, and that's they guaranteed his full $130,000 UDFA salary, I think it was. So, which is a lot to do, especially with limited cap room right now. I actually really, the ones that made me curious, Jaelan Askew, I think, could end up being the Fedulum punter, the one that kicks Fedulum off the team. He's really, really good on special teams. And then Jones is an interesting, or not Jones, I'm sorry, the fullback there.
Yeah, Carl Tucker.
Carl Tucker was a very interesting one. After going to North Carolina, he went to the Crimson Tide. He can be a receiving threat out of the backfield at that fullback spot, and all signs with the Ethan Carter signing, with grabbing Carl Tucker as an undrafted free agent, with having a couple of tight ends that can play kind of that H-back fullback type role. And you look at, they tried with the names escaping me right now to get him on the roster and held him way longer than anybody expected for somebody that barely could crack it. I think Miami's going to be moving to at least some packages that require that true fullback role, and it wouldn't shock me to occasionally see Jared Dokes up in front of Myles Gaskin. Or your power package potentially be Carl Tucker with Jared Dokes behind him. It's Miami can do some interesting, fun things with the personnel that they've got on this 90-man roster, and I'm intrigued to see it. And then Johnson, don't underrate him. I mean, Hal Habib had an article about him, or a little quick write-up on him. He was named Indiana's most outstanding lineman the past 2 seasons. He gets pressure upfield from the defensive tackle spot. He was second team All-Pro, I believe, or All Big Ten in 2020. And, he's a 3 technique, and he just keeps going and pushing towards the play and really tends to get a little bit off balance at times, but at the end of the day, that's something that they can work on with him. And he might be a guy that can come in, at least on pass rush downs from that interior, and give you some pressure.
Yeah, as a pro prospect, Jerome Johnson, looks like I think he'll challenge maybe Benito Jones for a roster spot here, or maybe Jason Strobridge.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think he's a good run stopper. He, from what I saw, I watched a couple of games on him. Good run stopper, good strength, but 6'2", 295. And so that might cause a problem for him. I don't see a lot of pass rush potential in the NFL, but in college, he had 13 and a half sacks over 4 years. Pretty good production for a 4-year starter. So, yeah, I think the battle you're going to look for is Jerome Johnson against Benito Jones. Probably advantage Jones. I think he was a better prospect and has a year in the Dolphins system. Jaelan Askew, I wasn't too impressed with what I saw, but he's an undrafted free agent. 5'9", 180 pounds. Small and plays smaller. That's how I looked at him, and not all that fast. 4.5 40. So I don't know. Some of these undersized defensive backs like Nick Needham and Montre Hardage have gotten on the roster and surprised a little bit. So maybe he does that too. Yeah, Carl Tucker goes to Alabama from UNC and doesn't catch a pass, doesn't really do anything but block, but did get on the field a lot for them. And I'm sorry, Paul, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, so Kat, sorry, I thought you were done with the undrafteds. I was gonna just say I have a massive favor now that we're closing out this Dolphins draft to ask of you, and Rachel, if you're listening, please help me out with this. Kat, make this the year you don't buy a free agent or drafted player's jersey. I beg of you. No shirt with their picture on it. No, nothing with their, don't even like write their name in marker on the back of a T-shirt. Like, please.
Not even a T-shirt. No, you don't have to worry about that. Those days are over of getting active players. After I got Minkah Fitzpatrick, and he was then traded 3 weeks later. Now I'm out, because he was the one player who was like, there's no way he's going to get traded. It's just not going to happen. And then like the next day, you started hearing rumblings. So the curse is real. There's no doubt about that.
You even got Minkah's mom involved, man. Like,
man. So I will end on this here with the Dolphins draft here. I will plant my flag one last time and say this. I wish the Dolphins would have taken Penei Sewell at 6 over Jalen Waddle, and then come back at 49, and you still have Rondale Moore on the board. I would rather have Penei Sewell and Rondale Moore over Jalen Waddle and Liam Eichenberg. That's that, and the 3rd round pick too. So, but I get it. I really do. And I think that these 4 players that Dolphins got, I think they will start, and I think they're a perfect fit for what they're looking to do. And when you factor in that they still got a 1st round pick in 2023 and a 4th round pick here next year, overall, I'm going to say the Dolphins, when you factor it all in, I agree with a lot of the draft pundits. I think when you all encompassing the Dolphins had, you can make the case that the best draft in the NFL.
Yeah, and for me, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think you hit the nail on the head when they said, or when you said that they found the guys that are going to do the things that they want to do. And at the end of the day, one of the things I really like about this draft class is, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, and just a little bit of gut feeling, they did something else that Flores has said is tremendously important to him. Greer has said is tremendously important to him. Not only did they get smart leaders, they took guys that love football, and that can't be underrated. When you're having fun out there, you're gonna pull something up for when push comes to shove. You're gonna play a little bit better, and you're gonna have fun, and that fun starts to get infectious amongst players, and that's something that Flores and Greer have put a premium on, and they got it in spades. Guys that if you're enjoying it, you can find that extra gear when you need it. Whereas if you're just out there collecting a paycheck, at some point you're a little more likely to just say, screw it.
Yeah, I look at the 2nd and 3rd round picks of the Dolphins, going back to what I said before. If I had put out a mock draft at the beginning of the day saying we got Javon Holland, Liam Eichenberg, and Hunter Long, and gave up a third rounder. You'd probably be pretty underwhelmed if we're being honest with ourselves here. But what I have to remind myself too is that last year when the Dolphins took Robert Hunt, Raekwon Davis, and Brandon Jones in the second and third round, really in the same areas, I was kind of because we get caught up in the upside of everything with these draft prospects. But Robert Hunt was a great pick now, at least after the first year. Raekwon Davis certainly was. And Brandon Jones, very, very promising as that third safety. So that's encouraging for me that the Dolphins took in Holland, Eichenberg, and Long kind of the same football players that fit the culture, that fit the team, and were productive, most importantly, in college.
Yeah, and God, it's the football IQ. It can't be underrated. It's these guys have motors. They're smart football players, and they understand what's going on around them, not just what they're supposed to do. And if you can get a whole lot of guys like that, it's those moments that are questionable. They're going to be out there and have that idea of what's going on, and you're going to see some sneaky good things out of it. And if you want to talk about being underwhelmed, there was some confusion at times with this draft, but sitting back and looking at it objectively, you end up really enjoying what happened.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And some people mentioned in the chat too about my Sewell comment, and Dolphins Maniac said, let's see, picking a player doesn't mean that the same guys will be there later. Well, in this case, it does. I mean, if you took Sewell at 6, Phillips at 18, you could still take Holland at 36, and Rondale Moore would have been there at 50. But look, again, if I'm pleased with the Dolphins draft, I give it an A or an A minus, and I think it's one of the best in the league. I'm excited about what they did here. Were there a few things I would have done a little bit differently or wanted them to do a little differently? Sure, but not many. So I expected them to take Waddle. I mocked him. We did 2 mock drafts on here. I had him taking Jaelan Waddle, and so I'm certainly not surprised by it, and he certainly fits. So, Paul, anything else jump out?
Yeah, real quick, Jat Hammer just put out there, and thank you, Jat. Adore you, dude. He wants to know if you buy a Josh Allen jersey, if it will have the same effect. And I don't know, it might be worth the test.
He'll win MVP if I were to do that. So no,
all those fumbles that went out of bounds may come back inbounds. Josh Allen improved tremendously, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this soapbox. We'll have plenty of time this offseason to talk about it. I remember I was talking to Travis Wingfield about this a little bit. There was nobody out there that threw more should have been intercepted balls, had more fumbles that happened to tumble out of bounds instead of inbounds. He is still prime and rife for turnovers. And you watch the way he carries the ball when he goes sprinting down the field like a deer. He's got it out there like this. And that's there is that propensity for mistakes to suddenly turn into a snowball. And yes, he's a tremendous talent. He's a tremendous talent.
Could not disagree more. Josh Allen is an MVP candidate.
He is, as long as those fumbles keep going out of bounds.
Well, if they do, he'll fumble once a game and still throw for 400 yards. You
have to fumble if you keep throw it if you keep turning it over.
It sucks that Josh Allen is as great as he is. I didn't think it would happen, but he is, and that's where the Dolphins need to get to with Tua at the quarterback spot.
We'll get to that debate later. But
so overall, great draft for the Dolphins. Great draft season with Paul But I really, really enjoy this draft season with you, Paul, here, and the rest of the crew here at Chat. Thanks for sticking with us here every week. Thanks for everything that you all do out there. We've appreciated the conversation, and absolutely look forward to this every week. So that's going to do it here for our breakdown of the Dolphins draft class, as well as a few other things going on with them. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, finfanatic.com, and the Fansided Network. Excuse me. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.